Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first installment of Learning with Logan. I'm Logan. Today we are here with Carrie Keahl, who is an adjunct professor here at Lewis, and we're going to do some fun stuff today. Carrie, welcome. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, Logan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do here today.
Sure. So today we are going to learn a little bit about fingerprinting, how to search for fingerprints that are invisible, also called latent fingerprints, and then also going to be able to lift them and preserve them so that in the future a certified latent printing examiner would be able to compare that fingerprint.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm really excited. I love all those forensic shows, everything. I want to see how realistic those shows are, to be totally honest. Cool. So what's the first step here?
So the first step with this would be to take the item of evidence in question. Right here we have a tile, and we want to try to enhance any fingerprints that may be left on this surface. So when it comes to fingerprints, there's three main types. There's latent, which means invisible to the eye.
Okay.
Patent, which means they are visible. They're usually deposited in blood or dirt, for example.
Right.
And then the third type would be called plastic. So latent, patent, and plastic.
Okay.
Plastic would be what you would visualize and think of putty or window trim, possibly soap, things like that.
Are those like the most obvious sometimes? Like, are those ones that you could just see with your naked eye?
Correct. And latent is what we're going to have to do the actual work of fingerprinting, dusting, for the fingerprints to eventually show up.
Okay, so what's the first step here?
The first step would be to choose a fingerprint brush.
Okay.
Fingerprint brush has to go hand in hand with the type of fingerprint powder that we're going to use.
Okay.
So for this, we're going to go old school. We're going to use the carbon black. We're going to use this specific brush here.
What tells you what color powder you're going to use?
Sure, so contrast.
Right.
So if we're trying to fingerprint something on a light or white surface, we're going to want to use a darker colored powder. So black would be absolutely perfect.
That makes sense.
For that.
Okay, cool.
So you would take the brush.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to do it for you.
Okay,
just show you
Yeah.
how realistic it is to actual CSI TV shows.
Yeah.
This would be the brush. You want to gently place it into the actual container.
Okay.
This should be loaded with a lot of powder already, just based on the previous times that I've used it.
Right.
So you don't need too much.
You're talking about the brush?
Correct.
Okay,
it
cool.
should be already preloaded.
Right.
So when it comes to searching for the fingerprints, you want to gently swirl or twirl around the area.
Swirl or twirl?
Swirl or twirl. That is the phrase that we use.
Okay.
So I will try to go in this little area.
Okay.
And I'm just going to lightly swirl and twirl and see if any fingerprints pop up. If I'm not having any luck, I can then also try magnetic powder.
Okay.
So magnetic powder has to go with a magnetic wand.
Oh, wow.
It's not so much a brush as it is a wand.
Wow.
So this has a magnet down here.
Right.
You would pull the lever and that would disperse any powder onto the surface. So we don't want that.
Right.
So what we want is to dispense
the
lever.
Dispense the lever.
Take the magnetic powder.
Okay.
Once I dip it in here, you will see all the fibers at the very end fan out, just like that.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Absolutely it is. So then again, if I put this down and I pulled up the lever, it would go back into the container.
Wow,
So
that's wild.
There's different pros and cons for different powders, whether it's magnetic or actual powder. But since I'm having a difficult time with the black carbon, let's try the magnetic.
Okay.
With the magnetic, there is no swirling and twirling.
Right.
It's more of a painting. And the reason I say painting is we want to be very gentle. We don't want to touch the tip of the metal wand to the surface because it's going to destroy any ridge detail within your fingerprints.
Right, okay.
So very lightly, we're just going to kind of paint over the area.
Okay.
And there should be some fingerprints popping up.
Oh, wow, look at that. And while you're doing that, you do also work for the Naperville Police Department. Is this something that you do out in the field? Is this like directly translate to professional life? Because I know this is all stuff that we learn here at Lewis in the forensics department. So are these skills that you use out in the field as well?
Correct. So I've been a certified crime scene investigator with the city of Naperville for just over 6 years. So this is exactly what I'm teaching my students here at Lewis.
Yeah.
I want them to gain some hands-on experience while also learning real-world case studies provided by me. So I'm going to take this.
Right.
I'm going to steady speed, lift it like that.
Okay, the Goldilocks ratio, like that.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
excellent.
And now I'm going to place it onto the tile,
Right.
ideally with little to no air bubbles.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yes, which can be difficult when you're out in the field, for
Yeah.
example. Wind, snow, the conditions aren't perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here in the lab, it's a lot simpler.
Right.
So I would take this
Okay.
and I would go from one side to the other. I would press this lip side down.
Okay.
Oops.
Oh.
Just like that. If there were any air bubbles, we do have this scraper
Okay.
that we can go ahead and use and kind of clear out any air bubbles that may be in the way.
Wow.
I want to take that lift. I want to have a backing card ready.
Yeah.
And at a steady pace, I want to remove this.
Okay.
Just like that.
Oh yeah, look at that.
I have it on the tape.
Yeah.
And now I want to preserve it. So I have this backing card, which has a lot of important information that eventually I'll want to fill out.
Right.
Such as the case number, the date and time,
Right.
the offense type, what lift number that is.
Okay.
So in a sequence of lifts.
Okay, right.
Lifted by my last name and my badge number.
Right.
And then the lift location. So I would say a tile, for
Yeah.
example. Then you could even draw a little diagram if you're good
Yeah.
at sketching. So on the shiny side, on the
Okay.
back, same thing, just like I peeled, back and forth lifting. I want to then put it on
Okay,
here
yep.
with little to no air bubbles.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to put that just on the back there. Take this all the way to the side, and you want to rip down and away from you.
Down and away.
Down and away.
Oh wow, okay.
And then you can just fold this over,
Okay.
and there's your fingerprint.
Wow, look at that.
So it is absolutely preserved. Yep,
wow.
you could look at the details.
Look at that.
If this is an unknown print, they could compare that to a database of known
Right.
prints that has approximately 165 million civil and criminal arrest records.
Wow.
That they could go ahead and send that through the database and check.
That's crazy. So each fingerprint then is classified as one of those three?
An arch, a loop, and a whirl.
Okay.
Furthermore, what individualized, so you said it correct, class. An arch, a loop, and a whirl would
Right.
be considered a class characteristic.
Okay.
An individual characteristic is what we term minutia.
Okay.
So minutia are going to be very specific that you actually have to look underneath a magnifying
Oh,
glass
wow.
for, and you can try to see if there's any bifurcations, ridge endings, dots,
Wow.
lands. So it
Yeah.
really gets intense.
Yeah,
And that's why a certified latent print examiner needs to do that job.
Yeah, I imagine so, but it's crazy how much detail there is just even in this one right here. Well, thank you for doing this. Before we go, I want to talk to you about the forensics program here at Lewis a little bit.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the classes that you teach? Maybe we can start with that.
Sure, so I teach applied forensic techniques. I teach both the lecture and the lab.
Okay.
And so the lecture is going to be a lot of PowerPoints involving case studies.
Right.
And then some applicable textbook chapters that I find important.
Yeah.
And then the lab, that's when we're going to do the most hands-on things.
Yeah.
I bring a lot of props, as you can tell. I want them to be able to experience the exact same tools and equipment that we use in the real world. And I think the forensic criminal investigation program here is great, and it's really going to set them up for success if they choose to work in the field or in the lab as a crime scene investigator.
Why should people come to Lewis, right, for forensics?
The case studies that I present have been either cold cases, so we are allowed to talk about them, or they've gone to trial. And I think that's the best way for students to learn. They're seeing photographs, they're seeing crime scene sketches, they're seeing everything that I take to court myself and how I go ahead and solve a crime from start to finish and provide justice for victims. So I think it's a great opportunity for students to come here and again, sit in on some of these classes that are taught by people such as myself and really gain that real world experience before realizing, is this the right job for me in the future?
Yeah, that's really cool. All this stuff is really cool. Carrie, I want to thank you for being with us
Thank you
here
so
today
much, Logan.
on the first Learning with Logan segment. We'll be right back right after this.